Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Rosica and this is the Midnight Reader. I wanted to film a wrap up because I haven't done one in a while since about when I got off maternity leave, and that's been a little while now. I went back to work in early May and it is now July. So I'm gonna wrap up all the books I read in May and June, but also I just wanted to take a moment to do some channel updates. So first off, I just hit 300 subscribers, which is lovely. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Numbers are definitely not everything, and I just make the videos that I enjoy making and watching, so it still fills me with great joy that there are 300 people out there who have subscribed to my channel. If you have, thank you for watching, thank you for liking, thank you for subscribing. This is definitely like my fun thing that I do for like my creative energy, which has been lovely since having a kid. I have very little creativity and very little energy left. It's been really nice to have this as like a fun space where I can still make content and interact with you guys in the comments. So thank you for 300 subscribers. That feels like a lot. Other channel updates, as I'm sure you probably noticed, I do miss weeks occasionally. That's kind of just how it goes with my new life, having to keep a tiny human alive who is not myself. I recently had my in-laws visit, and then I got to go on a lovely little beach vacation with some couple friends and their daughter. It was just lovely, but it means that sometimes I just can't make videos. I did read 8 books in May and June. It's about 4 per month, which is about the average that I'm reading right now, which I think is pretty good. That's about a book a week. It's less than I was reading before having a kid, but I'm pretty pleased that I'm still reading at all. I did get 2 reads done from my summer beach reads list, so I had 9 total on there, and I have now read 2, so I'm down to 7 on the TBR. The first one I read was Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessa Sutanto. It's a cozy mystery starring a 60-year-old Chinese mother named Vera Wong, who runs a crumbling tea shop whose life has pretty much hit a rut. Her husband has passed away. Her son finds her overbearing and irritating, which, to be fair, she is. All this changes, however, when she wakes up one morning and finds a dead body of a local douchebag on her tea room floor. Okay, baby girl didn't want a nap. Now I have an audience, being very cute. Hopefully quietly. So Vera quickly starts helping the police in a variety of ways they find unhelpful, such as drawing a chalk outline around the dead body, hiding/stealing evidence, and conducting her own investigation. She quickly latches onto her list of suspects and inserts herself into their lives. I just loved it. It has found family, it has some romance, it has a lot of themes about things like loneliness and finding purpose. It has many red herrings. I really genuinely thought I had figured it out. I did in fact not figure it out. Here's a video I took of my face when I found out the last twist and who the murderer actually was. See, I had no mother ducking idea. It was great. I loved it. I immediately picked up Dial A for Aunties by Jessa Sutanto. I'm reading that one as well with one of my best friends who also read this book and loved it. She listened to it on audiobook and she was able to tell me that she thought the Mandarin and Cantonese plus the accent work were impeccable. And I trust her on that since she actually speaks Cantonese and Mandarin, whereas I do not. 5 stars and will be probably one of my top books of the year. The second book I read for my summer beach read was Pandora's Jar by Natalie Haynes. This is a book that gives an overview of famous women in Greek myths like Pandora, Medea, Helen, Medusa. Natalie Haynes is a Greek scholar as well as a fiction writer, so I thought she did a really great job marrying the source materials together to give you a good idea of what the myth originally was and how the women in the myth have changed through various retellings throughout the years. She talks about ancient retellings like various plays, as well as modern retellings in shows like Buffy and movies like Wonder Woman. She also talks about the movie Troy, which I remember being very jazzed to go watch because at the time Orlando Bloom was a certified hottie and my biggest crush in the world. Because it gets scholarly in places, it is the teensiest bit slow and a little bit dry, so I can't give it 5 stars, but it is a solid 4-star read for me. I enjoyed learning about the women in Greek myths. It made me feel both feminist and smarter. Next, I read The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell. This is the Great British Bake Off. It is. It's just set in Vermont and it's less British, which, to be fair, I think it suffers from. I really think it should have been more British, but they probably had to do that for like copyright reasons. It starts with a bunch of contestants on a baking show at a big house in the middle of rural Vermont. And it starts with the discovery of a dead body, much like a cozy mystery, and then works backwards. I think that this book kind of sits on the line between cozy mystery and thriller, and I think it sits more on cozy mystery than thriller, but there are definitely like more suspense pieces than you'd find in your average cozy mystery. So it's kind of a good one if you're trying to get into either genre. It does suffer a bit from having so many characters, especially because at the beginning they are not particularly well defined. I would just take a character and then I would picture a former contestant as that character, and then it made it much easier to keep track of what was happening / caring about the characters. It was solid enjoyment. Like, it wasn't blow me away fantastic. It was a fun little read. I got into it. I think it suffered from not being more British and not having as much baking, which are just fatal flaws. Solid 4-star read, and if you're looking for kind of in that cozy mystery, slightly a little more thriller suspense, this might be a good one for you. Or if you're just a huge fan of Bake Off, you'd probably just enjoy like sitting in this weird little world of what if the Great British Bake Off was a murder mystery. I also finished A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab, which is the 3rd book in the Shades of Magic trilogy. This was actually my favorite book in the series by a lot. It's sort of hard to talk about without major spoilers, so all I'm going to tell you is this story follows a world that's built on many universes of London, and they all kind of sit on top of each other like stacks of paper. And then a couple of people in this magical universe can travel between the different Londons, but because they're stacked on top of each other, you have to go through them in order, just like you would through a stack of paper. Because of where they're positioned to magic as a whole, they have different amounts of magic in them. So Grey London is our world. We have no magic at all. Red London is where one of the major characters come from. They are overflowing in magic. It's coming out of their buttholes. They have plenty to go around. White London has just a teeny bit of magic and they're fighting over it, and it's a major dystopia. And Black London is locked up tight because they unleashed the magic and it ate itself. Yeah, you're tired. You silly goose. I put you in bed. You didn't want to sleep. I think being a parent just means you'll be interrupted forever. You get a little bit of unconditional love out of it, but mostly it's you're interrupted forever. So the characters in A Conjuring of Light include Cal, who is a prince from Red London, who is also a traveler, so he can go between the worlds. We have Delilah Bard, who is a thief from Grey London, who gets caught up in this interworldly adventure. The first book is mostly about world building, as well as like mashing all these different characters from different worlds together. And then the second book is just Goblet of Fire filler. It's definitely a bottle episode, but I enjoyed it. It has a big tournament in it, which is super fun. The third book actually has an adventure, which pays off the previous 2 books. Ignore the top of this head. The thing I find the most interesting about this book series is, while I did enjoy it, you are really meant to root for the characters from Red London. Like, Cal is meant to be the hero of the story, but it's also hard because very much Red London is like the capital in the Hunger Games. They're very much just have wealth of magic and everything else just coming out of their buttholes. Everyone else who's just barely scraping by, who gets obviously fed up with this inequity, who comes for Red London, they're supposed to be the villains. If you pitched me the plot of this, I would have said that Grey and White London were clearly supposed to be heroes of the story, and Red London should be the villains because they are the haves versus the have-nots. So I don't know. The reason I think I love the third book so much is that you do actually finally get a hero's arc for someone who is portrayed as a villain for the first 2 books, and they wound up being my favorite character. It's a great little fiction fantasy if you like magic, but it was just pure good fun. I'm happy I finished the series. I definitely think the third book was the best. Also, just side note, Cal has the best outerwear in all of fiction, okay? He has a magical jacket that you can just keep turning inside out, and every time you turn it and flip it, it's a brand new jacket. So the man just has endless trench coats. I'm telling you, he's the capital, but I want the coat, and that's one of my favorite things about Cal. Next, I read Momfluenced by Sara Petersen. It's a nonfiction book about mom influencers. Holy cow, was that a good book. I go out of my way to not be a mom influencer. I am trying very hard to hide my child from the interweb. I promise she exists and she interrupts me constantly, but I'm trying to keep her off of the internet. Honestly, because I feel like if you grow up online, I think it's kind of a horrifying thing to have every single baby video of you and like story about dumb things you did as a child out there forever when you become a young adult and a teenager. To me, that's a sort of horrifying thought. This book specifically is about mom influencers with sort of special emphasis on Instagram. It's hard to explain. I thought it was just gonna be like a one-off on like, oh man, Momstagrammers are great or Momstagrammers suck. No, it's like super complex and convoluted. She talks about it in a way that's both like non-judgmental but also looks at like the really high highs and the really dark lows. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And it talks about how they have changed the way we parent, about how parenthood is perceived, specifically momming, and that's also because there are not as many dadfluencers. It's, if the mess of that sort of picture perfect internet intrigues you, read this book. Lastly, I read 3 books for a video where my family recommended books to me. I'm going to link that video. I'm not going to go through them in detail because I did make a whole video about those books. I'll describe them all in one sentence for you. So the 3 books I read were The Book of Basketball by Bill Simmons, which was recommended by my husband. This is the Bible of basketball and sports knowledge mixed with highly inappropriate humor. I read The Book of Eels by Patrick Svensson, which was a recommendation for my dad. This is a nonfiction history book about people who are interested by eels, as well as half a memoir about the author fishing with his dad. Lastly is Number 1 Ladies Detective Agency by Alexander McCall Smith. A white guy wrote a super popular series about a lady detective set in the 1990s rural Botswana. It is a slice of life story and doesn't have much detecting, but it is in fact cute. So those are the 8 books that I read in May and June. I'm pretty happy I'm still reading, to be totally honest with you. Feel like the Latin description of my life is now status interrupticus. That's what's happening now. So I'm pretty pleased I'm still reading. I have a couple of videos already kind of shot and planned coming up for July, so I hope you like those. But thank you very much for liking, watching, subscribing, being kind. Thank you for helping me get to 300 subscribers, which is just awesome. Thanks for being very patient with this giant chaos ball that is my life. I will see you all next video, which should hopefully be next week, since it is pretty much shot, filmed, and in the can. Thanks for watching. Tiny Human says bye. She says bye if she could talk. See y'all next video. Bye.